Hello everyone, Richard Miller, the roving Never Not Here, and we're into real lot of roving these days. We're somewhere between Sydney and Canberra, and that's called Canyon Lee, on a retreat grounds, and we're the only ones holding down the fort here at this 100-acre organic apple farm, and so they trusted us with everything, and we're pretty silent from this weekend. We had a retreat, and a lot of things were let go of, and that kind of leaves a space. And so that's pretty enjoyable. And there's a lot of potential to it. I think that doesn't mean we're stopped. We're actually in full motion. And this is just kind of like a pause between the breaths. And I was actually doing a Skype talk this morning, what you call a conference call, right? With some kind of a group that does Sunday conference calls, Monday morning for Australia. And we were talking about traditional ways of looking at things with silence and non-doership. And I don't know, it came to me that there's no such thing as non-doership. I mean, there's motion happening all the time. You know, maybe you're identified with it or not identified with it. Maybe the motion is very subtle. And, but what's the need of the labels? And once you have a label, then you have to decide if you're doing it or not. But if without the label, you don't really have to decide. So then you're doing it. And so anyhow, we're pretty lucky today. We're here by Sydney, but we're also in Adelaide. We're talking to Clair. So hi, Linda.
Hi. Hi, Richard.
It's kind of like I've got time, right? Or whatever time is, I've got it. And in a way, it's a change in life because it's easy to fill up your dance card and say, oh, I'm going to go here, or I got to go there, I've got to do this. Of course, we go to work, so then we got to be there at 8, leave at 5 or whatever. And I don't know if I'm just in a special time where I've just cut loose of that, or whether you could just do it every day of your life. Just kind of move from one thing to the next without even an agenda, but knowing where you're going, I suppose, or maybe not knowing where you're going. Just releasing your life to the flow or the movement. I seem to be discovering this space.
Well, that's how I live. And I've got no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing.
It's not always the case, you know, like I've found that a spiritual teacher, and I'm not saying you're one, but just for a group, to pick on one group, they get pretty well booked, you know, and it's even hard to make a phone call and get them to answer. Or you can make a bunch of appointments on Skype, and if they answer those, and I don't know, they talk about freedom, but they don't seem very free. And so then it's hard to reflect that, or hard to really understand where they're coming from. I mean, you can hear the words.
Well, I can only talk about myself. I think sometimes I'm really busy in the world, other times I'm not busy. And in a way I feel the same whether I'm active or not. But some of my favourite times are when I don't have anything planned, no agenda at all. And I've got no idea how the day's going to unfold. I don't anyway, but when there's nothing actually planned, I feel quite happy.
Yeah, I'm just kind of coming to the idea that, okay, let's say that that doesn't seem possible for so many people. But let's just say that we had a little part of the day or one day a week or something where we just didn't book, but stayed fully available, but not with the idea that we had to not do anything. Because I think a lot of the spiritual translation comes to the idea that we're supposed to, a non-doing means don't do. And if we had just like one little sanctuary in our week where we were fully available to do something even crazy, like that we would never do, that's total waste of time, actually, for what our projects are, Maybe we could feel this space.
Well, maybe, but the way that I've come to feel this space, and I'd say most of the time I feel it, whether I'm active or not, is through, and it might seem like a paradox, is through structure. And meditation practice involves a lot of structure. Within that structure, you find freedom. So it doesn't mean that you just do whatever you feel like doing. What I felt was the opposite. I was incredibly disciplined at times and incredibly structured, other times not. But I found this was the way to freedom. The freedom was actually within the structure.
Now let me ask this. If you have a discipline and you have a structure, isn't there always, always, always an automatic judgment if you're up to snuff on that structure?
No.
How do you let go of that?
Through the structure.
Through surrender to the structure, in other words.
Yeah. The whole world is a structure. You look, in a way, I've let go of the structure now, but I can see that it was through the structure, through getting deeply into the structure, that I was able to let go of the structure. So now it doesn't matter whether something's structured or not.
So there's no attachment?
No, there's no attachment. The body is a structure, and there's no attachment to the body now. But, it's the ultimate structure. It's a structure that all of us, most people, are most deeply attached to. That's the deepest fear, that you're going to lose that structure. But the way to let go of that attachment to the body is through the body. The way to let go of anything is to get deeply into it and then let go. Getting deeply into anything is getting deeply into seeing the fear.
I was noticing even this morning on this forum, I guess I was kind of like the one that was poking everybody in the ribs, but I was saying that sometimes when we hear these, let's see, this wisdom teaching and the real clear part, the part that moves toward clarity, often there's an interpretation of that it's cool or cold even. Mm-hmm. And we notice that really there's not much to me, like the structure, the fabric of the meat was pretty thin, wherever it is. And so then really that me gets left out of every equation, and me becomes just this cold, sterile observer. And I was suggesting maybe we should just have a baby carriage, and the baby would be like a 2-week-old infant that was just coming to the world saying, wow, what's this? Who are you guys there? What am I doing here? And that infant is you.
Yeah.
You. And then to treat that like you would treat yourself, like you would that infant, just like give them every possibility to just feel that they're loved and that this is a wonderful place, really, that it is, right? And not to get confused by the fact that, hey, somebody looked cross at me, right? And then just make that to be you, instead of, And would that be an experiment that would kind of like put in perspective the coolness of this detachment that often is taken as a spiritual, highly spiritual, right?
Well, it's a baby is a really good example, because that's how you start to feel more and more. And you look at a baby, people have got this thing about detachment. There's no emotions. You become very cool and very cold. And it's just not true. It's, you become more like a baby. And you look at a baby is not emotional. A baby is just pure and beautiful. No judgment, no emotion. They only cry when they need something. This is very young baby. But would you ever say a baby is cool and cold? It's, a baby, to most people, is the most beautiful thing you can see. It's just purity, pure energy. And that's what happens. You have the experience and the wisdom of being able to look after yourself and being in the world with the purity of a baby. And it's the most amazing feeling, where everything is new. There's not this judgment of people. Now, I don't look at people and judge them. It's just not there. But there are periods during the practice where it does feel very cool and detached, and sometimes I do feel that, but there's this real warmth about it. I spent some time in a monastery in Japan, and it was really quite extremely disciplined. But with that extreme discipline, there was extreme love and compassion and gentleness as well. So it was the extremes that attracted me and that really got me. The detachment isn't, for periods it might feel a bit cold when you're still detaching from your emotions, but it's not at all. That's what you see.
Well, is that a natural part of the process, or is that just a misinterpretation?
It's both. It's a natural part of the process, but people looking on misinterpret it, and it's usually misinterpreted because of fear. People are just so fearful to let go of their emotions because they're scared of what they're going to be without their emotions. That they're just going to be this cool, detached being. And there are times when you feel like that, but most of the time you just feel warmer than you ever have, and more connected to people. And there's not that emotional stuff in the way. There's not that ego separating you, that fear that's separating you. So I feel closer to people in a way than I ever have, but there are times when I feel more alone than I ever have as well.
I can see where aloneness could come as an interpretation, because you could say, like, I feel so open, but it doesn't seem like it's spread around very much, you know. Why am I the only open one? And then somehow that interpretation is an aloneness. But when you're not in that, I don't know, when you're not in that interpretation, is there still aloneness, or?
I wouldn't say it as an interpretation.
Well, I didn't say it was an interpretation, referring to what you were saying. I just made another example, you know, that was an interpretation.
I'm not saying loneliness. I'm saying alone. Everyone is scared to be alone because ultimately they know they're going to die alone. And that's the great fear of being alone. And it's not that I don't want to be around people, but I am very aware of that aloneness at times. And I don't see the negative thing or anything really, it's just how it is. There's an aloneness, but at the same time it's a connectedness with everything as well. It sounds like a paradox. It's just how it is. You feel alone and intensely connected at the same time. You see, it's the same thing.
I kind of feel like painting a picture, that I'm not, it's not really a sure picture, but I like to just paint it. And it doesn't have all the answers either. It's not like it's got holes in it. And but maybe I'll just start by saying, like, sometimes when a day feels free and there's space in it, and something happens, and it might even, let's put this word synchronicity on there, because everybody's loved with synchronicity, like as if it's a rare thing or something. But let's just put that word on there too, so then all of a sudden you're interested in it, you're really interested. And then, you go up to a door or to a restaurant or somewhere, and this synchronicity happens later, but when you're walking in the door, you don't really know what, or maybe several synchronicities have happened in the day, and boy, you're really open, and maybe things look scary and they turn out to be really great, and so then there's this buzz going on, right? The synchronicities are blowing your mind, left, right, and blow. And so you're really not anticipating, you don't know what to do anymore, what to anticipate. So you're in this space, I'm just painting this space, like, where there's some kind of a tingling going on, like that, and we could call it really being alive, right? And it's kind of like a moment-to-moment thing without having a preconception to lean on. And I don't know, that's kind of clear, right? I think everyone's probably experienced something like that, where there are tingly moments, and it's kind of exciting and kind of like a little bit, should I go forward? Should I go backward? Is that enough for today? But this is really cool, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. So then I want to take that one step farther and just say, when that tingle gets too much, then we're going to label that thing, and we're going to say that's called fear. But really, all it is life. There's no such thing as fear, I'm telling you. But the part of my picture that doesn't have all the holes covered is the fact that there is something called prudence, right? And so where that fits in there. But I'm just trying to say that we're always saying fear is this big boogeyman, and it's coming and getting everyone to do this, and fear is that, and your motivation underneath your sadness is your fear and your life and all that stuff. But it's basically, fear shows up as a big tingling, right? Like a huge tingling, like, yikes! And so it's just life is all it is, I'm just trying to say, Fear is just life in a bigger dose than you're ready to take now, But if you would define it as life instead of like this big boogeyman from the devil or something like that, I mean, you would just say, well, I just take it in measured doses, and each day I get a little bit more ready to launch myself into the Never Never Land. How about that for one? Let's throw that fear word away.
Well, I think what you're describing is being alive. I think that's freedom from fear, and that's what life is. I think fear is fear of being alive, and that's what most people are scared of, because they're scared of death. So ultimately, of course, fear doesn't exist, and that's what you have to prove to yourself, but you need to get deeply into that fear. And the state you were describing is the state of enlightenment, where you're living on the edge all the time, but there's no fear. And
yeah, but there is fear. That's the life. That's that life buzz, That's the fear thing we were talking about. I think there is fear, but it's not called fear anymore.
No, there isn't fear. When you're really alive, and when you realise you don't know what's going to happen, you've got no idea when you're going to die, however much you try and be prudent and sensible and careful, you've really got no idea when you're going to die. And when you accept that, the fear that you had before just goes, and then you feel alive. Then that tingling, the picture that you painted is just life. That's how one feels all the time. That's why this state called enlightenment, people go on about it so much, is so amazing, because you're living on that edge every moment. There's just one moment. There's not one moment, next moment. It's just all one moment. It's all one life. And that's how it is. And there's that tingling, energetic connection with life all the time.
Yeah, and that tingling, energetic connection goes up and down, like it's soft and subtle sometimes, and it's just thunderstruck, shocking some other times, like, whoa, a tsunami comes in, right?
Well, I can only talk about me. For me, it changes, but it's not as extreme as that anymore. It's more a fairly constant extremeness.
Well, that's your level of prudence, probably. You just avoid those situations, right?
I don't avoid the situations at all. I don't go and walk in front of a bus. That would be stupid.
Right, yeah, but you don't walk in a bad part of the neighborhood, or, you don't go.
I don't do stuff like that. I don't go out seeking thrills or excitement. It's all in me, whatever I'm doing. It's not what I'm doing. It's all within. What I'm doing doesn't have much to do with it anymore. It does have some effect, but I can see ultimately it's not really going to change how I feel. So when you're not scared of anything, you see there's nothing to lose.
So, like, let's say, okay, we're living that way and we're walking around. Would we just notice that this somehow is soothing to those around us? Could you notice that, or is that just all a mind trip?
I forget about that most of the time.
But I mean, could you just notice?
Could I?
If you focused on it.
Are you talking about me or someone?
Well, anyone, our experience. Let's say we were just kind of like accepting everything. So we were receiving everything. So then actually other people we would be receiving. And then somehow receiving without reacting is soothing, right? I mean, I can notice that.
I can only talk for me, in my experience, whatever you want to call it. And I do notice people are affected by being around someone who is in this state. Whether it's me, my teacher who you interviewed, Peter G. I do notice most people are affected. It depends how open they are, but people are affected whether they notice or not. So it does affect people. It's an energetic thing.
It comes to me that it's pretty obvious too, it's also energetically and all that, and then we could just say that it affects people in ways we don't know. We could say that too.
Yeah.
And then, and then we could actually say that somehow if somebody is received in stillness, they get to see themselves. Because if you're received in reaction, then you always say, I can feel what's happening in me, but it's you, because you're doing all those things, which is the reaction, see? But if you're received by some stillness or by a guru or something like that, then it's generally said that you see yourself, because it's generally even said that that's the duty of the guru, right? In a way, like the master always sees who you are and never wavers from that. And so then that means he never reacts. He just sees your beauty and that you are oneness and spirit, or whatever the flowery words we want to put with it. We even say that in the lore, that's their duty in a way, or that's their mastery. And so then if we're kind of doing that and receiving every situation out in the city, in a way, and then we're moving in our tingle, and it goes up and down, but somehow we can say that it's kind of high now, and would be prudent to kind of go back into the car and drive away. But, and then we could either call it fear or not fear, when the tingle gets high. But in the meantime, when we see that, and you said we react without fear, in a way, our state, or if there's a state, but the way we are feeling about ourselves, in a way, it's bulletproof, right?
Yeah, in a way. In a way. A lot of people aren't into this, but the way to become established in that extreme state is to ground the energy in your body, and that's what meditation is. Grounding the energy in your body, grounding your body so it can sustain the tingling, the extremeness of life for longer and longer periods.
Well, I was involved with some practices this weekend which were like forgiveness and which were like release, releasing things, finding things and releasing them. And a fire ceremony where we threw all our things in the fire and, which are symbolic, but actually they kind of work,
Yeah.
And, we did 108 chants, we chanted around the mala. And we were invoking gurus and masters to burn our karma, I suppose, although we didn't use those words, And then each chant we were holding our heart and we threw something toward the fire. And I didn't have a clue what to throw, but 108 times something came up really clear, just in that instant, at the last minute, somebody's face or something like that. Somebody I haven't seen for 40 or 50 years. I could even see their hair and how it was, and I saw their face and almost like I was there. And I put, a lot of people were putting just what they thought were their bad things on the fire, and there was just a bunch of candles there in front of this guy, And, but I was putting everything in, cause what I thought I was doing right and what I thought I was doing wrong, cause I just wanted to be free and clean, and I thought anything that's for my highest good will come back, right? So I'm just gonna give it. And, it was immensely clearing and immensely grounding.
I've never done that before, so I can't say how I feel. I suppose,
I had never done it either.
No, I've never done it, so I can't, I can just take your word for it.
I couldn't believe it. All these incidents from when I was 2 and 3 and 4 and then in grade school and when I was in the hospital as a kid and when I was, when I felt fragile, when I came out of the hospital and in my high school and in the college and in the army and then in work and then with women and so many things, everything just came up just 108 times, I don't know if I got all the way till today or not, but.
Yeah. I think for me, those things came up while I was especially when I was doing longer retreats and sitting, meditating with my teacher. Just being around him would bring things up. But I can see that it would be clearing, doing something like that.
It wasn't in any way forced, and it wasn't in any way like a discipline. It was just a game, and that somehow I had no resistance to it, or I didn't feel any, right? I just thought, this is a good game, let me see. I don't think I can come up with all these things, but let me see. And, by golly, it was easy.
So you really feel different after it?
Yeah, I feel real silent and real connected, and my state does seem bulletproof. What could perturb me? And not with the idea that I have to clear all my past or go into psychoanalysis or dig up all kinds of trauma or And then there was actually forgiveness too, forgiveness procedures that came after. And then some of those things seemed like I was at tort, like I was at fault or something that could merit a little bit of forgiveness, And I could forgive like my father for me blaming him all the time, and for actually trying to screw him up, because when he tried to help me, then I would always go the other way and say, look, it's getting worse, back off. So I had this really weird strategy. I was really a twisted kid, and so then I had to forgive myself for doing that to him, not forgive him for what he did to me. It came the other way around.
To forgive yourself?
Yeah, for being such a jerk. And then also I had to forgive myself for this little baby that was me, and all the crap that I put on him, for all those years, just because of my sense of needs and stuff like this. And this little pure baby had to live this really limited life and be scared all the time and stuff. But he was totally innocent, right? And I was the dude from my karma or whatever, whatever you want to call it, spirit or being, or somehow I possessed this little kid and I really ruined him.
But you didn't do anything. Forgiveness is really just acceptance that everything is as it is. And that's how it was. There's no one to blame.
Yeah, you can do that and run that through your mind, but just saying I forgive, forgive me for doing that to you, and thanks for putting up with me. It's meaningful. And, you know, you don't even have to talk yourself out of it. Just do it.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was just totally cool, and not my way, you know, because all this Never Not Here business has started out with Papaji teachers and all the non-duality, and then went from here and there and hither and yon. But it started out kind of really in these clear spaces, and you know, just say, who am I, and just stop, and all this kind of stuff, you know, that, I don't know, it never really did much for me, but I learned a lot about parroting.
When did you get interested in all of this?
Like 5 years ago. It was kind of like 5 years ago. I went to a Gangaji seminar because actually I had a guru there, and something about him for 3 or 4 years. I was doing a lot of action with him and a lot of yoga and a lot of things, and something all of a sudden I just didn't like it anymore. Just immediately, you know. It took a while to sink in. Actually, he said something like this. He said, let's just say I'm the bus driver, and if you're on the bus, you know, you're going to arrive, whatever that is, and you'll never have another incarnation. And I thought, what a bunch of baloney, you know, that he's saying that tomorrow I'll get there at the final bus stop, you know. I don't want to get there today, so then I just split. After all that good devotion and all that good practice and meditation and kriyas and things I was doing regularly, every day, and never missing, and changing my diet and changing my habits and all kinds of things on the practice side, you know, and really loving the guy too, and loving his energy and the way he, you know, he really. And then I just say, no way, this is all a bunch of concepts. So then I thought, I'll just check out non-duality and see what that's all about. And then it just went from one to another to another to another. And then I started this Never Not Here thing about a year later. Not even out of volition, it just was a happening, you know. I really don't have a lot of volition or vision or in my life, you know. I've always kind of wanted to keep an open space and see what would come in there, and maybe I'm getting good at it, I don't know.
Yeah. I wasn't interested at all until I met my teacher. And before that, I think I was, but I didn't realise I was. But I wasn't into meditation. My partner at the time was. He kept trying to get me into it, but I just wasn't interested. And then I met my teacher, and it was like you were saying before about what you see in a guru. I just saw my potential. It was quite amazing. And that's what started me. Just that reflection of who I was.
I've been lucky in the last few months. I've met Peter maybe 5 times, been with him, and actually I planned a trip with him. I'm going to travel with him. So I got pretty close to Peter. And the first time he came out, well, I saw him on a YouTube or something like that. And I was thinking, you know, because like, I don't know, I thought I was over this a lot, you know, because I started out, I started out kind of like with Osho, and it was so extravagant, you know, and it was so pumped up, you know, and I just thought that was it, you know, that kind of an energy was normal. And then anyone else that had a smaller energy, I thought, oh no, that's not it, that's not up to snuff, right? And so then when I first saw Peter, I mean, even though I thought I was really over all that kind of arrogance and that, you know, anyone that has a big imprint, you know, all the famous teachers, right? But I mean, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, all the big ones have a big energy following and a big, you know, and you kind of naturally gravitate toward them and say, oh boy, this big movement must mean something, right? And then, so anyhow, when I saw Peter, there was a little hint of that, like I saw him on a YouTube before I met him. And I thought, oh, he's so timid and he's so soft, you know. It's a real low energy, probably real low action going on there or something. I have to admit that I must have had some kind of idea that way, but I was open, you know, but God, I just totally fell in love with him, and he's really taught me. Other people have too, but you know, he's really reinforced it, that really what's really important is so subtle. It's so subtle because it's here all the time and we're just trampling over it. You know, we just don't even notice it. We're looking for the big electric super boom, you know, and I mean, just look at our movies and all our stuff, you know, like how we had special effects and, people fly and all that stuff, and it's all total fantasy, and all those small, tiny, teeny-weeny little movements. I mean, maybe you could get enlightened just moving your finger back and forth or something like that. I don't know, I'm just about, I'm not saying that, but I mean, the subtlety is where really the discovery is.
Yeah, it is. And it's like you said with Peter, when I was going to see him regularly, and I actually moved up to be close to him. My partner and I moved up, and there weren't many people going to see him at that time. And Barry Long was still alive at that time. Do you know Barry Long?
I didn't know him, no.
Yeah. Anyway, he had quite a few people going, and we were living in Byron Bay around there, and there weren't really all that many people going to see Peter at that time, and I was just looking around going, well, why aren't there more people here? It's amazing, but people were going after the big names, They thought, well, it must be right. Osho wasn't alive then, and Barry was a great teacher, but what I wanted was that, as you had with Peter, that one-to-one personal interaction, and that's what I really needed. I needed to be close to my teacher, and I just couldn't believe my luck, I just felt so fortunate to have this deeply enlightened being around the corner. It was incredible, and I worked really hard, but he was a great teacher. He was fantastic, and I just, as you said, I just loved him, and that's what we were talking about, the coolness and detachment. There's that, but the love for your teacher is the thing that softens that and makes it bearable, the whole thing, the whole practice, the suffering, whatever. What you need to go through, everyone needs to go through to a degree. It's that love between you and your teacher, which is different to any sort of love that I'd experienced before from my children, my partner, anyone. It was just this incredible depth of purity, pure love. And that's what it was. So following, Eckhart Tolle and all of them, they're great, but I think for most people there's only so far you can go with someone like that. And they're doing a great thing at your shanty, but for me it was that one-to-one connection that really got me. And so that's the way I teach now is discipline. It's really basic Zen Buddhist practice, but with that one-to-one connection as well. And one of my ex-students is now teaching with me, who you might like to meet sometime. I don't know.
Of course, turn me on. Set it up. We'll do it. Well, I think what you said is so important, and so, we should hit it again. We should hit that drum a few times, because the love between you and your teacher. But it's not really like, in a way, I wanted to say natural. Of course, it's natural, but I mean, it's not, so much of our action is by reflection or by imitation, and so people aren't really loving those cool teachers, right? They're loving the bhakti teachers like that, but then that's like over the top for us, right? And so then nobody's saying that really the love relationship to a cooler, let's just call Peter a cooler teacher, because out of an invited through, well, I don't know what, but anyhow, one that's from meditation background and an open space, a space background. And let's just say that, nobody else seems to be really loving him and stuff. I mean, are we wrong for loving him, or is that just non-essential, or is that just kind of like our hang-up, or because there's no model for that, and I think that the fact that you said it kind of opens that up for people to just say that I can find that love for him, and then, I mean, even farther, like what we said half an hour ago, to have a baby carriage and put yourself in it, and love you, put you in the mix too.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are in love with an image and of someone. For me, with Peter, it wasn't. I knew it wasn't even him in the personal sense. I was in love with this. I was just in love with freedom, the reality, and he was an embodiment of that. But, and I think you need that to really keep you going, to have that reflection in front of you as much as possible. But the love that I felt for him was just so intense that I couldn't tell anyone about it. So, because especially in the West, it's really looked down upon. You know, people start talking about cults and think that you're excessive and crazy. So a lot of it I just kept secret because it felt too private to talk about. And especially in India, it's quite acceptable. But and it wasn't that it was totally that. I was, like I said, I was very disciplined as well, and he encouraged that. And before that, I was really quite an independent person. So I wasn't the type of person who just suddenly find a guru and that was it. It was as much a surprise to me as anyone else. But it was just an incredible feeling, this love that I felt. It was like the love you read in some of the books, the Indian books for their gurus. But it wasn't a public display, it was really quite private.
Yeah.
Very confronting at times, very intense, but just amazing.
I feel as long as we're talking about Peter, let's keep going, and I kind of know him a little bit, and so I wanted to say that his partner, April, she is really an awakened being, and she is total love for that man, and maybe she's a model for it, and maybe if she sits up with him, together with him, and starts to teach with him, or however it's going to progress with his illness, maybe they'll stop. But anyhow, just to say that love that you experienced is there big time between Peter and April, and April, I don't know. I got her to talk a couple of times. Maybe I'll get it online, But she's wonderful.
Yeah, she. So I think with that love too, a lot of people feel like it's attachment. And for me, for a while, there was some attachment there. But what it was the attachment that led to the letting go of all attachment. Almost all attachment. I don't know if anyone who's still in their body completely.
Yeah, I suppose you can never know, It seems like some people are sharing there's I wake up tomorrow and wow, this showed up. Whoa, that seemed to be even more intense than before. And you can call it a deeper level or something like that, but you don't have to say there's really such thing as levels, but somehow it's a deeper noticing, let's say. And then, So then that never stops, you think this must be it for sure. No, tomorrow. Bingo.
Yeah, well, I know for me, from what I can see, it just keeps going, and you do see more and more subtle and probably deeper residual stuff that's still there. I don't know if that all ever goes, but I know it's still there in me, much, much less than it was even a year ago, but there's still something there. Maybe there has to be to just stay in your body.
Yeah, well, it's a real old model where, we're doing a cleanup here, and so then the end result should be spick and span, right? Mm-hmm. So then that's an old model about doing a cleanup. We're not really doing a cleanup, we're just noticing what we notice, right?
Yeah, and I don't think you can ever be completely clean. It's important to accept, and I was just talking to my teaching partner, Roger, the other day about this, that you can't expect yourself to be perfect. Other people might expect that, but, what's perfection? It's just accepting imperfection, maybe, but it's never going to be completely clear.
Yeah. I think I like that definition. I'd like to say it again, perfection is accepting imperfection. And then, of course, any other kind of perfection is really totally, it's all based on a forethought, like a thought that things could be different.
Yeah,
And
and
that's all it is.
It's a personal concept. What one person sees as perfect, another person doesn't.
Yeah. It's funny how for at certain time that some kind of spiritual discipline and the ideas of some other way to live your life is important, and then in another time it's like it's totally not important. In fact, it's a thing to avoid. I don't know. That's what I'm getting anyhow.
Avoid what?
Avoid spiritual concepts, which are measuring yardsticks to see if I'm there yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say avoid anything. Look at everything. But I think one of the main questions that people ask me is, where am I? How long is it going to take me? Where am I? Where am I in this? And you need to let go of that and just get into what you're doing.
Well, avoid that then. It's not really an avoidance. What is it then?
Let go of, see it and let go of everything that comes to it.
In other words, someone says, where am I? You said, if that's a serious question to you, then you're far, far away. But if that is just a frivolous thought that's coming and going, then you're right here.
Usually when people ask me, I say, I don't know, or you don't need to know that. It's a concept. Look at where you are right now, which is just here. That's all you need to know. And even that, when you're fully here, you don't know. Stop trying to know things all the time. I mean, what do you need to know? I'm not talking about practical things. Well, they're involved as well.
Maybe a way to go at it is like if somebody asks that question, then you say, well, what will it look like when you do get there? And then they'll say a few things, I won't have any stress, I'll be peaceful, I'll have a lot of money. I don't know if they'll say that. Well, I'll feel well cared for,
I know it's completely different how I felt it was going to be.
Yeah.
Completely. Nothing like I thought. It can't be anything like you think it's going to be. And for me, that was really true.
So then whatever they say, you could say, well, let's just pause a second, see if that's here. Maybe it's already here. Some of those things might be here. Let's see which ones are.
I think it's just I forget about that, just concentrate on now.
Seems like the human animal likes to take refuge in something, right? I wonder what is refuge? Am I just making up a word, or just means like a safe place, right? Where they feel safe?
Yeah. I think most people want something that's not going to end.
Well, that's a real concept, that is a hocus pocus baloney. I don't go for that, What is going to end or not end? I don't know what.
Well, eternity never ends. And eternity is not a concept.
Now that's so wound up in most people's mind, in mine too, like, okay, something that ends or doesn't end is a string, it's along, eternity is not a string. So then they don't even compute, they don't go together at all. To mix them up in a sentence is kind of like just a perplexity.
Well, instead it's called the koan.
Yeah.
And they're meant to just short circuit your mind, so you can't understand eternity. And that's what it is. It's something beyond understanding and beyond the mind. But the mind is all based on time, memory. Thinking is all based on memory. It's always to do with the past. Even thinking about the future is always to do with the past.
So then I just wanted to talk more about refuge, like whether it's these safety islands. And so then some people, I'm just talking about myself, I guess, as memories of myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people, I would imagine some people do this too, but myself, take refuge in activity. Because if there's always motion, then whatever is buried stays buried. There's no time to look at it anyhow, And I'd be willing to say that some people take refuge in stillness.
Probably true, yeah. Some people probably too.
And so both those people ought to mix it up a little bit, and come out of their refuge, right?
Well, I feel the way I teach, if you want to call it teaching, guide people, is to have periods of intense stillness and then go into the world, into their daily lives and combine the two. So they're not these separate things, the stillness and the motion. The motion is in the stillness and the stillness is in the motion. And actually in stillness, in real stillness, it's intensely energetic. Sounds like a paradox, but it's intensely energetic. It's a really intense space to be in when you're incredibly still. It's not relaxing, it's intense. But some people refuge, this depends how you define refuge, I suppose.
I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is define it, but I think it's like a respite from life, It's like an island where we make up this island where life doesn't flow and we can just be safe. Either safe from what could bubble up because we're just in all these, in a way it doesn't sound right, because if you're in a refuge called activity or it could be a refuge called extreme sports or something like that, or somewhere we habitually go when we want to unwind or feel too wired or something like that. But I don't know if we need them. Okay, entertainment. How about movies and all those things? These are kind of refuge. How about the fridge when we're indulging in, what do you call it? When cows go out to the pasture, we're foraging. You don't know what to do. These are all refuges, right? And so then we could look, that would be a good place to look at all the possible refuges. It's kind of like where we're trying to say, hey, life, stop, slow down, whoa, what's happening here? I don't want to pay attention to that anymore.
Yeah, it all depends on your intention. There's nothing, I don't see that there's any right or wrong, but in activity, there can be intense activity, but if the intention behind it is not to avoid anything, you can feel incredibly still while you're incredibly active. Most people, I feel, who are into extreme sports and things like that are really just trying to feel alive, trying to have a break from their mind. That's what most people are looking for with a refuge, to have a break from their mind, from just that momentum and that dizziness. They just want it to stop for a while and have a break. And enlightenment, if you want to call it that, realisation, is a complete break, almost a complete break from your mind. But I don't know if I call it a refuge at all.
Yeah, but it's totally different, isn't it? Even meditation, if it's a refuge, if it's used to just stop the mind, heck, just take a drug. Hey, you can do a lobotomy. They put a needle in there, they go, and you can be free from your mind. If that's a deal, you know, I mean, go for it. I don't get it, you know, because like, shouldn't it be to understand the mind, not to be free from it and shut it off, to understand it and understand what ticks it and what doesn't tick it, you know, and then, I don't know, I feel like that is way more valuable, because then mind is your tool and not just have a shut off switch on it.
Yeah, it's true. It's like meditation is not stopping your mind. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to stop my mind. It's making friends with it and getting to know what goes on, the whole functioning of the mind, to understand what's happening and to ultimately see what control the mind has over you. And then, once you see that, most people who see that deeply can't tolerate being controlled by it anymore, because you start to get a taste of some sort of freedom from it and feel how that is. And then you want more and more. And, you know, it's not about getting rid of the mind or avoiding it or stopping it or anything. It's understanding it, and once you fully understand it and realise what it's doing, the mind just naturally goes into its place. Rather than controlling you and being the master, you become the master.
Yeah, that's a total different slant on it, you know, because I think the misunderstanding is that we get shut off the mind, you know. Okay, my brother's got Alzheimer's, so have a ball, you know. You ain't gonna like it, I tell you.
Yeah, and drugs have something to use drugs. If you just want to stop it, just keep taking drugs or whatever. But that's not what I've seen meditation now. It's about understanding the mind, not avoiding anything, seeing it and seeing what's going on. More and more deeply.
Yeah. I don't want to totally down my brother. He's in some very tender spaces, you know. Okay, there's some good parts too, but I mean, that's not what it's about. It's just not having a mind.
No. In initial stages of meditation, well, in a few, a lot of people start to get a bit concerned because they start to forget things. And they start to get worried that they're going to have Alzheimer's. And there are some, you know, minor correlations, similarities between them, but it's not that.
Thank God for pencils.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can remember where you put your pad of paper. That's an advanced stage.
I write down everything. I use timers I walk out of the room and I've forgotten about the room, so I have to have timers and things like that to remind me what I'm doing, what to do, what I'm doing. You have to learn how to function in a different way rather than relying on your memory and your head. Obviously you do. You write things down. So what I need to remember, I usually remember. I do remember.
So I really like what you said about you're saying your teaching method is to find some very extreme still spaces, but then take that into the marketplace. And then that coming and going, you know, somehow there's a pull, and you can pull it and see how far it pulls, and just see what, you know, all your spaces, what is portable and what isn't. Because what good is a space that's not portable, you know?
Yeah, well, precisely. And you need to practice it in daily life. Even though I spent time in a monastery, and at that time it was the right thing for me to do, most people don't need to do that. And so I like the experience of being, well, I run a meditation centre here, doing retreats, having the encouragement and support of other people who are into it, and then just going into their daily lives and practicing what they're testing, what they're doing.
Usually we do it just the opposite. In other words, after a retreat, then we're saying, hey, how can I stay in a still space? And I want to keep this thing going as long as possible. And the more I do it, the more I'll get the hang of staying here. But I'm not so sure that that's really the way that you can find out that space is always here.
No. If you do, I mean, clinging to something like that is just going to create more fear of it going away. So what I recommend to people after a retreat is that they just go home, do their normal stuff, but stay grounded. Maybe not do too much social stuff straight after, but if you have to, you have to. And just do very grounding things.
Yeah.
But a lot of people after retreat, I mean, they have to go back to work. So you go back to work, and it's a really good reflection of what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know, sometimes I dream like, okay, a Buddhist meditation might be doing a lot of sitting, right? And then in between sitting you do walking or conscious walking or something like that, or mindfulness. But wouldn't it be cool just to do sitting, and then let's say you were right in town, then you would go to the supermarket and buy something and come back, and then sit some more and then go back and buy something else.
Well, I think for most people, they do enough of that in their daily lives anyway. So a retreat is a break from doing that.
Yeah.
And after a retreat, they're going to do that anyway. Well, here people do. But during a retreat, like retreats here, I feel it is good to have a break from just the pressure of being someone, the pressure of relating. So I like retreats that are mainly silent, but with discussion as well in certain periods, but not chatting all day. Because what people want is just to have a break from having to project and be anyone for a while. And it's amazing what comes up when you're not actually projecting and trying to be someone. In fact, there's still stuff there, of course, but it's really interesting seeing what comes up and the assumptions you make about people that you might not know, you just haven't met before, and you just see, and it's incredible what comes up. But I feel it's good to have breaks like that where there isn't much, and then go back out and do stuff, and not be this spiritual being all the time, but go home and watch a movie or whatever you feel like doing like that.
Well, I'm not saying just go and forget about everything, but there must be, if there's mindful walking or mindful dishwashing, then there could be mindful supermarketing.
Sure.
I just remember one time, and it really came clear to me, it was about 6 years ago, I was doing a yoga retreat, more hatha yoga, but, this lady was actually from Siddha Yoga, so she was kind of mixing a lot other yogic philosophy or something in there, but anyhow, the thing, her retreat center was in a strip mall and next to the dry cleaners, and I was kind of mad when I got there. I said, well, what kind of place is this, It was actually in La Jolla, so La Jolla, California is also a beautiful place, And it was just a block away from the sea. We'd go down, walk to the sea and eat lunch. And when I left there, I just realized that, boy, whatever I learned here, I could take it anywhere, And I just valued that, even without even having these kind of thoughts, or this depth of thought, but just it was kind of like my pre-taste of the fact that, gee, I'm way better off just to do a retreat in the strip mall than I am to go into some fantastic retreat center.
I feel it's good to combine, like I was saying, have the retreat and have it quiet for a while and have that break, but then not being scared to go to the supermarket. And it also, the contrast with places like that is that it does help you to see more clearly what's going on inside you. Because when you're in a retreat situation, you don't really know what's going on, and you don't realise until you go home, back into your normal life, well, normal, what has happened. And people, I know a lot of my students say that they often realise things when they're doing things in the world, if you want to call it that, doing just daily things, and they realise suddenly that they're not reacting as they were 6 months ago. And in a retreat situation, you often don't realise those things. You realise a lot, but some of the deepest things you see just in day-to-day life. So I'm all for the combination. It also extends you more because there's so much pressure from most of society to be in the mind, to remember, to be doing things, to be in this momentum of time that, it's a really big test to be there and to start to realise that you are becoming stiller, not so caught up in that momentum. When I was doing my practice, I had 2 teenage children, a partner, work, just a normal life. And all of that contributed to, it was all part of my practice. It was all the same. But I did feel I needed extended periods of just sitting, especially around a teaching.
I've never been a parent, so I've never really had that consistency in my life.
Mm-hmm. The children were actually a good anchor, and they kept me grounded in a lot of ways. Otherwise, maybe I would have become just too obsessed with the whole thing. But, doing a retreat and then going home and having to help your son or daughter with their homework is a really grounding thing to do.
That's so great of you to say that, because I bet you a lot of people think, I can't do that spiritual trip because I would be pulled out of it with my kids are too young or something. But it's not true, right?
No, it's not true at all. The kids are all, whatever's happening in life is part of it. And for me, it was a big part for me to just not get too caught up in the I'm spiritual thing.
Yeah.
What's being spiritual?
Yeah. Okay, so then the other thing we can debunk is that there's a fast track, that somehow I would be on the fast track if I was just in a pure open space. And you're saying that actually integrating every day, every moment with other obligations is a fast track.
Yeah, I feel being around someone who's free, having a teacher and especially being able to be around them a fair bit is a real catalyst. Being able to sit with them for periods and then having a normal daily life is, for me, if there's an ideal, there's no shortcuts, but that's a great situation to be in. I'm not saying you need to have children, of course, but just live a normal life.
Hey, you can rent them.
You can rent them.
Take care of somebody, right?
I'm sure people would lend them to you.
How do we see you? Do you give retreats?
Yeah, I do. I run a centre here, and we have Tuesday evening, Saturday afternoon each week, and then once a month a retreat. So some retreats are 2 days, some are 4 days, and there are 2 7-day retreats a year. This year I'm doing another retreat in the US, in Raleigh, in North Carolina, in March, and that's for a week. It's the first one I've done in the US. So I was invited over there to do that there. So I'll see how it goes. And I'm doing a couple of evenings in New York as well. At the end of February.
Well, we wish you totally well on your North American visit. Another good city is Toronto. If you still have an open ticket, that's a beauty.
There's someone from Canada coming to the retreat. I think I'm not sure where she lives, but somewhere in Canada. I'm going to San Francisco on the way back too, but I'm not doing anything there. That's a holiday. I haven't been there before.
Well, I don't know what my schedule is. In the short term, I can't quite. I don't want to go that fast, I just like we started the conversation. I'm just kind of like cut loose and without too much agenda. And I think if I'll be in Melbourne, and I don't think I'll make it over to your place. But
when are you going to Melbourne?
in probably 1 week, just around the 30th or 31st. I'm doing a strange thing, you know. I'm doing a funny thing now. I'd heard about Tent Embassy, which is like Aboriginal, like a place where they camp out in front of the Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that Australia Day this Thursday is the 40th anniversary. And I thought, gee, for 40 years they're probably going to do some special things. People will come from all over. Who knows? Maybe from other countries. Indigenous people will come up and they'll have some kind of like demonstrations and discussions and talks. And I wanted to kind of get involved with that. So I don't really have any contacts, but I just know that that's going on, and I just wanted to give an open week to that. And if it doesn't seem to open up, then I'll move right down to Melbourne. And if it does, then I'll go down there either the 30th or on the 1st or something like that.
Melbourne, yeah, that should be interesting in Canberra. Melbourne, I'm starting to do some sessions in Melbourne when I get back from the US. So I'm doing an evening and a morning, and I'll probably start going to Melbourne quite regularly. So I like Melbourne.
Do you have to fly or can you drive? It's pretty far, isn't it?
It's 9-hour drive or less than an hour flight, so I usually fly. And I was just there a few weeks ago, so yeah, I'll probably be going there monthly, quite regularly to do things.
I don't know exactly what's going on with me, but I kind of made a significant step, which is I bought a ticket to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So that kind of means like my real departure is from Brisbane. So I do have to come back to Australia to get back to the U.S. And so then when I come back, I'll have another 90-day visa.
Oh, you're welcome to come visit.
Yeah, anything is possible. I'm going to be around, you know. It's kind of amazing how, like, you know, Australia was this faraway place for decades and decades, and all of a sudden it's like this eminent thing, you know, that is here and ongoing.
Well, if you do want to come over to Adelaide, I don't know, there's a bit happening here. You're welcome to stay. I've got a really big house because it's a retreat centre. So
Oh boy.
if you want to stay, there's lots of beds.
Yeah.
And I'm still here by myself now, so.
Yeah. That could be cool, because I heard about there's a train that goes north up to Alice Springs, and people are trying to get me to go to Alice Springs.
Well, that'd be great. You could catch the train. It's the GAN, whatever it's called, GAN. And it goes up. I've been on it before. It's a great trip. And you go up to Alice Springs, and then you can catch a bus out to Ayers Rock and around there. It's amazing. Actually, you need to go to Alice Springs if you're going to be in Australia.
Yeah.
You need to
Well, that's next week, you know. I'm going to be making a lot of Aboriginal contacts, so then I'll really be welded to that, right?
Well, I'm sure there'll be people from Alice Springs and Darwin there and the Northern Territory, so you'll probably make contacts there. You'll probably get lots of invitations up there.
Right.
I'd love to have a retreat up there, if you can.
Oh, yeah. You organize it, I'll come along.
So you're going to New Zealand with Peter?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I'm still not used to calling him Peter G. I always knew him as Peter.
Right.
Peter G.
Peter G. Linda, what fun. It's really nice to get around like this and save gas.
Yeah? 90 days. How long is that?
3 months.
3 months, another 3 months.
Yeah. And I don't even know when it starts, because, I mean, I might even be 3 months in New Zealand. I don't really have any contacts yet, so who knows how it'll unfold there.
Yeah, I've got a couple of contacts in New Zealand. I have a couple of people who come to retreats from New Zealand sometimes. And so I can try contacting them if you like.
Yeah. Email them over to me and contact them, or email them and me at the same time or something.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I don't know. April might have contacts over there too. I'm not sure.
Right.
I'll email you these people's contact email. I know they've got a teacher over there too, but they come here for retreat.
Yeah. So then I could hook up with that teacher.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the teacher. Oh, actually I do, but you can find out.
That's for later, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this visit and allowing us to come to Adelaide and just get the feel of it.
Thank you.
Totally enjoyable. Linda Clair. Catch her in the United States in March. There's time for you guys to get your ticket to Raleigh. There's a whole SIG group there, but then this is separate from SIG, I think, a special retreat. So I don't know. You'll find out.
Yeah, it's separate from SIG, although I'm involved with SIG. I just did a movie with Sean last year and an interview with him. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks. Okay, bye everyone. I'll catch you in Australia. So, bye for now.